Today, we journey into the heart of the First World War, where courage, sacrifice, and the human spirit were tested like never before. This is a story not of generals or strategies, but of the ordinarily men who lived, fought, and sometimes died in the trenches, each carrying a story that history almost forgot. It begins in the freezing winter of 1915. The Western Front stretched endlessly, a landscape of mud, shattered earth, and barbed wire. Among the new recruits arriving was Eddie Foster, a 19-year-old from a quiet village in England. Bright-eyed and eager, he had imagined war as a place of honor. Instead, he was thrust into mud-filled trenches, rats scurrying beneath wooden planks, and the stench of death hanging in the air. At the same time, across the same battlefield, Louis Moreau, a French soldier from Lyon, joined his regiment. Unlike Eddie, Louis was seasoned, hardened by months of fighting. He had seen friends die in front of him and carried a quiet sadness, masked by a disciplined exterior. He kept a small notebook, sketching the landscape of destruction and jotting down reflections that no one else would ever read. Eddie met Captain Arthur Blake, a veteran British officer, on his first day in the trench. Arthur became Eddie's guide, teaching him to navigate the labyrinth of mud, duck under sniper fire, and find brief moments of respite amidst chaos. Meanwhile, Louis became a mentor to younger French recruits, showing them how to survive artillery barrages and the endless nights of fear that defined life on the front. The first major battle came in spring 1916. The British and French forces were ordered to advance across a stretch of no-man's land toward heavily fortified German positions. Eddie crawled through mud, his rifle clutched tightly, and witnessed soldiers around him fall to enemy fire. He saved a young private, Thomas Hughes, dragging him to cover while bullets whizzed past. Thomas would become his closest companion, a bond forged in survival and terror. At the same time, Louis led his men in a separate assault on the same battlefield, coordinating movements and keeping morale high despite the constant barrage of shells. He witnessed acts of bravery from ordinary soldiers, men who refused to give up even when surrounded by death. He rescued wounded comrades under fire, risking his own life repeatedly, knowing that the line between life and death was razor-thin. Through the summer and autumn of 1916, both Eddie and Louis endured endless attacks, each day bringing new horrors. Soldiers suffered from frostbite, trench foot, and constant hunger. Rats infested the trenches, and diseases spread rapidly. Letters from home were rare, and both men clung to small comforts. Eddie's notebook, Louis's sketches, and shared stories of childhood memories. These small pieces of humanity kept them grounded, reminding them of the lives they had left behind. By winter, Eddie and Thomas were sent on a reconnaissance mission behind enemy lines. Their task was to gather intelligence on German positions, a mission that was both dangerous and crucial. Crawling through destroyed villages, they evaded patrols, recorded troop movements, and narrowly escaped detection multiple times. Their success prevented a German offensive that could have cost hundreds of lives. Meanwhile, Louis and his unit were tasked with defending a strategic ridge against a German counterattack. The bombardment was relentless. Shells tore through the earth, and soldiers clung to life wherever they could. Lou personally dragged wounded men to safety, coordinated defensive maneuvers, and inspired his men with courage and determination. Both Eddie and Louis learned the harsh truth of war. Survival required not just skill, but resilience, quick thinking, and the ability to endure both physical and emotional pain. In early 1917, Eddie, Thomas, and other soldiers faced another major offensive. The battlefields were transformed into rivers of mud, shell craters, and broken barbed wire. Soldiers navigated the terrain like ghosts, each step potentially fatal. Eddie found himself saving multiple men, carrying them back under enemy fire, and witnessing the deaths of friends who had become family. Each loss weighed heavily, yet each act of heroism reinforced his resolve to survive and record everything in his notebook. Louis, across the front, faced similar horrors. He watched entire units decimated, men he had trained and guided lying lifeless in mud. Yet he persisted, finding hope in the bravery of younger soldiers, teaching them to help each other, and documenting every event. His sketches captured the chaos, the destruction, and the fleeting moments of humanity amid despair. As 1917 progressed, both Eddie and Louis experienced the psychological toll of war. Nightmares haunted their sleep. Letters from home brought both comfort and sorrow, and the constant threat of death became a permanent shadow. But through it all, friendships endured. Eddie, Thomas, and their comrades shared rations, stories, and quiet laughter in moments of reprieve. Louis formed similar bonds, finding solace in camaraderie, and the unspoken understanding between men who had seen too much too young. The year 1918 brought the final, massive offensives of the war. Eddie and his unit were at the center of a critical battle to hold a supply line. Artillery fire tore through trenches, smoke and debris filled the air, and men fell on all sides. Eddie and Thomas fought tirelessly, rescuing comrades, relaying messages, and holding positions that were nearly impossible to defend. At the same time, Louis and his regiment faced a German offensive aimed at breaking through the French lines. Louis coordinated counterattacks, carried the wounded, and inspired his soldiers to hold against overwhelming odds. Both men witnessed acts of extraordinary heroism. Ordinary soldiers, terrified yet determined, performed feats that would be remembered long after the war. Eddie and Louis, though from different nations, shared the same human experience: fear, courage, loss, and the determination to survive. Their notebooks and sketches became records of heroism, chronicles of the horrors of war, and reminders of the human cost of conflict. Finally, the armistice was declared. Eddie, Thomas, and Louis emerged from the trenches into a quiet, altered world. The landscapes bore scars of battle. Villages were destroyed, yet life persisted. Soldiers returned home, carrying memories, scars, and the weight of experiences that could never be erased. Eddie and Louis, though separated by nations and language, both preserved their experiences in writing and art, ensuring that the sacrifices, courage, and humanity of ordinary soldiers would never be forgotten. Years later, their stories inspired generations. Eddie's notebook became a historical record. Louis's sketches were displayed in museums, and the bonds formed in trenches continued to be celebrated in memory and legend. The intertwining of their stories reminds us that war is not just about strategy or territory. It is about people, their courage, and the choices they make when faced with unimaginable adversity. Through these intertwined narratives, we understand the human cost of war, the resilience of the human spirit, and the importance of remembering those who fought and those who never returned. Their experiences teach us about sacrifice, friendship, and the enduring power of hope, even in the darkest hours. Every soldier in World War I had a story. Every story deserves to be told, remembered, and honored. If this journey moved you, please like, subscribe, and share to honor the countless untold tales of World War I.